said we'll just say, because it was hard to brush the fire. But he, had, chopped down the other part, it actually needs to be taken off by the city, but because we had done just the shrubs and fallen under progress. We had such big piles of cities that would take all of it, so we'll just have to do that the next time that they do. And plus I've got to do the shrubs going down the side of the house, on either side anyway. There's not designated to be trees. Some of them, wow. And I haven't got whatever. Yesterday was wasn't that cold. And I said, and I may go by there over that farmer's market over there. Over there, that
I guess I'll tell you.
they kind of last year. Where's the pictures? Yeah, I mean, I've seen pictures that race it. I know you have later pictures than what raced. Now, where's your mom? Yeah. We have no other doctor. Now this is, oh, that's, no, oh. Now I did see one of all of y'all that Haley had. Very good. Got mom. Yeah, I think that thing is all right. When I look at yours, the older she gets.
Hey, what's up? This is what this came in. Thank you for this.
But anyway, we're trying to finish up.
Oh, I'm good. I'm back the next
Today is actually.
He's been around here.
They're friends with our friend, Hal. They had it as a senior. I know you can, but he's not on for the fans. I don't think they can't run.
I was surprised that they
Buddy Friday.
he's on contract. We're trying to upgrade that whole
Like
system.
my,
Change some parcels over and get everything.
Right now, they have flagship built as a county system. Flagship built is not correct with names. I think it's
which means fire.
You know, Big Brown, yeah.
you go on that, there's nothing correct with names. I have a copy.
I spoke to her today. They talked about that. Good for you. Really, y'all are good. I live in Montgomery, but I have
Way up, I did it. And it was all the way up here. And it cost it, I had to go to the hospital.
I've got a little printout for you.
And then my neighbors had
yeah, they were good to you. I know.
Saturday morning, I had to talk to them,
As a disclaimer. We'll see what you want. Glad you're right. He's just but he refuses, but they refuse to charge maintenance. That gives one this.
We'll call to order today's committee of the whole meeting for November 20th, 2018. We'll have a motion to approve the minutes from our November 6th meeting. A motion is second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Buster? You're correct. Mr. Griswold? Building Board of Adjustments.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Oh. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, on the Building Board of Adjustments, we have requirements that the commission consists of 2 engineers, 2 architects, and 1 contractor. We have 2 vacancies right now, one of which is for an engineer, and one of which is for a contractor. We also only have 2 applicants for those 2 vacancies, one of which is an engineer and one of which is a contractor. This will be a very easy one this evening. So for the first vacancy on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, I would like to nominate to the chair, Mr. Brad Harrison.
Any second for Mr. Harrison? Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor for Mr. Harrison, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Harrison will be officially appointed in our consent agenda later on in the evening. Okay, Mr. Griswold?
All right, and the other vacancy, which also happens to line up nicely, is Mr. Michael Schumacher. I'd like to nominate him for the second position on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals,
As the contractor position.
as the contractor position, yes.
We have a motion?
Second?
Motion is second. All in favor of Mr. Schumacher, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries as well, and we'll appoint Mr. Schumacher during the consent agenda in the regular meeting. All right? Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
All right, for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, we have one vacancy, and we were pleased to have a total of 7 applicants for the vacancies. So I took an approach where I established qualifications for the job based on the job descriptions, and then did a matrix, and I'm pleased to nominate 2 individuals for the single vacancy, which we'll have to vote on, Ms. Stacy Giles and Barbara Dunham.
I second Stacy Giles.
All right, hold on just a second. Is there any other nominations from the council?
I'd like to nominate, Brittany, is that Brayon?
Brandon?
Brayon.
Okay. Is there a second for Ms. Brandon? All right, so we go back here. This will be our first time for me as mayor, so y'all all please be patient with me. So we've got 3 people right now that have been nominated, and we've got nominations for each other. So I'm gonna take them one by one. And so let's get a nomination in a second.
Did we have a second for the other 2 as well?
Did we?
Yeah, Chris.
We did get seconds for that? Okay.
I seconded that one.
So we've got seconds for all these. Is that correct, Nancy? Okay. Do I have a second for Brittany Brandon?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for all 3 of those. So we'll take these one by one, and we'll do this as a voice vote. Lindsay, I guess we'll need to make sure that we account for everybody that's voting. Jim, help me through this. If someone were to get 5 votes, and they would be the nominee, is that?
That's correct. So basically, you should only vote for 1 person of the 3.
Yes.
If, well, on your first vote, if you took the first nominee and 5 people voted for that nominee, then that's all
The
you do.
nominee would be the, okay. All right, so we'll go to these as Mr. Griswold offered. So the first vote will be for Ms. Stacy Giles. So, I'll ask all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We'll get a hand vote.
You might want to do a hand vote.
Let's do a hand vote.
So that's 8.
So with 8 votes, Ms. Giles will be our new member of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. Okay, congratulations, and thank you to all 7 people that submitted their application. We certainly cherish everybody in our community who wants to be a part of the proceedings of the city, and we're thankful for everybody taking the time to do that, and we look forward to Ms. Giles' service on the Parks and Rec Board. Moving on down the agenda, any questions for the city manager?
Mayor, we do. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to, I guess, address a couple of things with you, a couple of emails that I sent last week, one regarding the Riverwood connection. I just think there was some confusion with that and just wanted to get some clarity around that from you. There was one email where you sent an email to Ms. Horline, I believe, stating that the city was, let me make sure I say this correctly, that the commission was not going to have connectivity at this time, but have the developer provide what is called a stub-out, which is an area set aside that can be used for future for connectivity should the Riverwood neighborhood desire for that in the future. By doing this, it will keep the development separated for now, but allow for connectivity should the desires of the neighborhood change over the years. To me, that was that was clearly stated that was the position of the staff. And then when Planning Commission met, it seemed that that information was not communicated clearly. And so there were some email responses I received back from that. So I think it it's caused, I guess, heartache for the neighbors of that neighborhood. It's delayed timing for the developer, and, you know, I think they just want to figure out what's, the neighbors I know for sure want just some clarity around this, so if you could address that, that'd be great.
So I've addressed that in several emails, and to be quick about it, I took responsibility. I also addressed it with the planning commission. I took responsibility, first of all, as I expressed in email, I believe, to you and to the gentleman who is representing the neighborhood, that while staff recommends, it is the planning commission and planning commission only who makes that final decision. When we met, you met with us, Ron met, or the mayor met with us, we understood that the neighbors did not want that connection. So in an effort to let the neighbors know we understand their desires, now whether we can meet them or not, I don't know. But we understood their desires. We went back and staff, we only had a day and a half to look at it. We thought there is a potential that we can come up with a scenario that would be good for the neighbors, would be good for law enforcement, would be good for fire, and would be good for emergency response should something happen, some catastrophe happen, that we needed an alternative. Unfortunately, my communication to staff was unclear, and while I had hoped that they would ask for the item to be tabled to give us more time to research that and go over with all of the experts, all the different scenarios, not just my consideration. I was not clear in that, and so it was, and I apologize to the planning commission for that. I have now answered several emails from the residents in that area telling them exactly that while it was messy, what happened is exactly what I hoped it would happen, so that the professional staff can have some time to review it and see if we can come up with an alternative.
Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that.
I'd like to add, I really appreciate you coming up with that solution. I think it's a great idea. I think it's good for everybody involved. I think it makes a lot of sense, so I thank you and your staff for what you did on there.
But that by no means seals the
Absolutely.
decision. though.
It is, it's a
Correct.
planning commission decision, and I need to make that as clear as I can. This is not, I think somehow my email was not clear enough when I did write it, as if this is what was gonna happen. Staff doesn't make that decision. Staff just recommends. It is a planning commission decision, and I didn't wanna make, I think that was unclear, and it was unfortunate on my part.
Does staff now have a position?
We're still working on it. I did tell the gentleman who represents those people that when we have our final decision, we will make sure he is aware of it before it goes to planning commission.
When, do you have an idea of when that would be? Is that gonna be, a couple of days before, or is this gonna be, maybe in a couple of weeks?
I think the planning commission meeting is December 13th, so it will be, I'm hoping it will be the week before December 13th, before it goes to packet, whenever they go to, when's their packet? So, Forrest tells me the packet goes out to the commission on the 7th, so we'll have a recommendation before the 7th.
Okay.
I can't tell you exactly when before the 7th. I mean, we have to vet it through all of the different staff.
And I just want to ask one other question. The residents, they waited a very long time. It was about an hour and 30 minutes, an hour and 45 minutes before they had the opportunity to speak. Is there any way that could be moved up to the beginning of the plan?
That's the planning commission. Again, this is in the purview of the planning commission.
Okay, thank you. And then I had one other item I wanted to address, which I think you're probably aware of, the live streaming issues that I think a lot of the council would like to see here. And I sent you an email regarding that a couple of weeks ago, and during our training, we had our city attorney tell us quite a bit about that, and he informed us that ADA compliance is one of those issues, and during that conversation, he stated that there were 30 cases in Florida alone where municipalities are being sued. And so I would like to have the 30 case numbers sent to us if that is a possibility. So we can review
I would like
that.
to offer some, if I could. That's a lot of work and a lot of.
He said he's already found 30, so.
Right, for them to, I mean, we can do that. It's a lot of work and a lot of money for us to do that. What I propose is that we will get pricing on a private firm to do the streaming for us with ADA compliance. We'll bring that to the council, and then the council can debate on how they want to move forward.
That's great. Thank you.
Any kind of anticipated time frame on that?
We'll have that for the next meeting.
Jimmy, will be conveyed to the planning commission.
I'm sorry?
It will be conveyed to the planning commission that we think that's a good solution that Riverwood.
I'm expecting that's, and again, I don't want to overstep my bounds again, but I'm expecting that we will have an alternative to that Riverwood connection.
Okay, any other questions for the city manager? If not, Jim?
Mayor, I do have a couple of things. Item number 10B1, we need to remove that from the agenda. Evidently, there is a new owner of that property, and we have not adequately informed that new owner. So we want to remove 10B1 from the agenda. Also, if you'll remember, during our agenda meeting, I had mentioned that we may want to table item 9D1 because we had not yet received a development agreement. We have received the development agreement, and it is in front of you this evening, so we'd like to go ahead and proceed with that. And because the development agreement should proceed the vote on item 9D1, I would like to take the development agreement, which is a resolution, out of order, and do the resolution first before we do item 9D1. So in item 9D1, it mentions that there has to be a development agreement. So if we do the development agreement first before we do 9D1, then that satisfies that. And the agenda item would be other business, but we would take other business before we get 9D1.
Okay, so 9D1, where would we do that again, Jim?
So what I'd like to do is we'll proceed in the order until we get to 9D1. At 9D1, I will take item 11A, which is other business, is a resolution, which is the development agreement that is referenced in 9D1.
Then when we get to 11A before D1, 9D1, may we take some time to go through it, or have someone
Yes.
walk through that since we are just receiving that this evening?
Yeah.
Anything else for the city manager? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion second, all in favor to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Lindsay?
Here. 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 Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Mayor's communications have a couple of things I wanted to walk through. First of all, I just want to thank the staff, and particularly the folks with economic development, Andrea, for a great Veterans Day ceremony. We adjusted on the fly because of the weather, and we came indoors, and I thought it was still very well done, and I just appreciate all the efforts to go to do that. The veterans are very honored by that event, and I'm grateful for the work and what our staff does to make that important each and every year. I want to remind our citizens that this council has gone through 2.5 days of orientation, and we've had every department head in the city of Auburn that has come before us and spent at least an hour sharing how their department works and who's in their department, and we've been able to ask them questions. I believe it's been a very fruitful time. To the city council, has been well chronicled. We have a lot of new faces up here, and I think it's been awesome, and I want to thank Jim and the staff for putting that on. It's been a sacrifice. The book y'all created for us to have as a resource is excellent, but just thankful for our staff, our city staff, for taking the time to come do that and teach us more about what's going on about the city. So very grateful for that. Thank you for all the council's willingness to be there and to give up days of work. We've had an organizational meeting, and one has even had its first general meeting. So they'll be off and running. They'll be moving at a different pace than one another. Some will involve a number of people from the public that will join those task force eventually, and some of them, one of those task force might even just remain as they are, just the 2 council members. But it's our promise to you, the citizens, that we take this responsibility seriously, and we look forward to bringing ideas and results back to you and back to this council for us to consider in the future. And we look forward to your participation. There'll be opportunities from many of you in the public to participate in some of the deliberations and decisions as we move forward. So please be looking for that opportunity and participate when that comes forward. Wanted to also remind everyone that we've got a new agenda tonight. And this is something that this new council talked about, and with the staff's involvement, we're going to be conducting business in a new manner this evening. We believe, after talking about it, that this provides us a more efficient way to conduct your business, but still provides you all the opportunities to speak. There'll be an opportunity, if you want to talk about something on the agenda, to do that in the beginning here. Under citizens communications on agenda items, you'll still have your 5 minutes that you can walk to the front and talk about anything on the agenda. Many of our items later on in the agenda have public hearings involved, and obviously if you would like to comment on that particular item at that particular time, you'll have that opportunity as well to come forward and speak. And then if there's anything that's not related to our agenda tonight that you would like to speak about, and it could be about anything, you'll have that opportunity at the end of our agenda this evening. It's called Citizens Open Forum, and it'll be the next to the last item on our agenda. It's item number 12 tonight, and you'll have 3 minutes to come forward and speak to anything new. I hope that you'll be patient and give this mayor and this new council an opportunity to see if this program and this agenda works. We really want to try it, and we think it's in the best interest of our community, but ultimately you make that decision. So we'll be looking for your feedback as well as we go through tonight and for the next couple of meetings to tell us what you think about this. Does this still provide you all the opportunities that you look for to speak to the things that you're passionate about in our city? And are we explaining things as truthful and as forthright as possible? One big change you'll see tonight is the consent agenda. And so we'll be packaging a lot of decisions that we make that are decisions we make every meeting into one decision. Now, I want everybody to understand, and the council understands that, if any council member has anything on the consent agenda they would like to remove and pull, we will talk about that individually, and we will approve that or not approve that individually. We will not shove this down your throat, I promise you. It'll all be done right out in the open for you to consume and you to talk about at any point in time. So that's what we're going to try tonight, and we would beg your patience and but ask for your opinions and your thoughts on this as we move forward. A couple other things. We've got some scouts here tonight, and I would love for one of you young men to stand up and introduce yourselves from what troop you're with and what you're studying.
I'm JD Dallas. I'm here with Troop 15, and the scouts here are doing a citizenship in the community merit badge. And we're here to learn about the city council, and we thank you for having us.
Good, well, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And finally, I want to say congratulations to one of our council members whose wife brought in a new child to the world, and congratulations, Brett Smith, and, this time, are there any other council members that have an announcement or anything they'd like to say?
Yeah, I'd like to just address, I'm on the advisory board at Auburn High School with Ms. Marshall's class, and she received a $25,000 grant for the Learn and Work grant this past week, and I know Ron was there to congratulate her, and I just thought it was a great thing, and thought it was worth sharing with everybody that she was able to do that, and also. If you are a if you're a business owner, you can take advantage of that, and if you need an internship, this grant pays for the internship. So that's a great thing, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I'll get you her information.
Thank you, Steve. Ms. Marshall does a fantastic job at Auburn High School. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Griswold?
Yes, many of y'all may have attended the meeting we had with the Alabama Department of Transportation earlier in the week. And it was about a potential roundabout as a safety improvement measure at the intersection of North College and Farmville Road. And I'm afraid that a lot of people had a misconception. Is this only survey that the ALDOT issued had two choices on it. It says, do you support this project or not support this project? I think a lot of people entered that meeting thinking that it was a choice between a stoplight and a roundabout. And frankly, that's not the choice that we're facing. The choice we're facing is, do we want to improve it at all, or do we want to leave it like it is? So the roundabout is the only solution for safety enhancement that the state of Alabama and the federal agencies that are going to be funding it have on the board. So please don't think that it's a choice of one or the other versus a stoplight or a roundabout. It's either leave it like it is or a roundabout. So with that in mind, I know we have a lot of citizen input to that meeting, and we're waiting to hear the results of that. But at some point, I believe it's be imperative for the city to draft a resolution in support of the roundabout, so that we ensure that we at least have some type of safety enhancement at that intersection. So at whatever point's appropriate, and how we go about doing that, we got to figure it out. But I think that's something we should pursue, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kelly. And I appreciate you being out there, and that was a well-attended meeting. There was a lot of passionate people from that neighborhood, and I appreciate Farmville Baptist for hosting that meeting, because they brought a lot of visitors onto their property that evening.
About 175 folks showed up that night.
Good, thank you. Anybody else?
I have an announcement I need to make. On next Tuesday, November the 27th, there's going to be a community meeting at 6 p.m. at Auburn Auditorium. And Al Davis will be the speaker, and he's going to be speaking to the Northwest Auburn about the community block grant and the improvements in affordable housing. So I'm asking everybody to come out, even if you don't live in Northwest Auburn. You may want to come out and just listen at some of the issues and have an opinion, or don't have an opinion, just want to listen. But I'm encouraging everyone to come out and support Northwest Auburn and Al for being our guest speakers for that night.
Tell us the date and time again, Connie.
It's November the 27th, which is next Tuesday night, and it's going to be at 6 p.m. at Auburn Auditorium.
Thank you. Anyone else on the council?
I do, sir. I'd like to announce our Ward 4 meeting. We're going to do that monthly. First meeting is going to be on December 3rd at the Auburn Public Library from 5:30 to 7 p.m. I hear the speaker's going to be pretty boring, but I'll try to do the best. We'll going to have guests. The idea is to be able to present information, answer questions, kind of be a conduit between the city and citizens. I'm hoping to have, Mr. Warren from the Public Library is going to be there to present about some of the offerings at the library, and kind of for folks that may have not been at the library to kind of know what they do and what the offerings that we have at the library, and I'll be there to answer any questions. If it gets really boring, I'll be sure to bring food, that way to entice people to come. So that's exciting. We're going to do that monthly. It's going to be the first Monday of every month, first being on December 3rd. And also would like to commend, again, as the mayor announced, very excited Our second baby was born on November 11th at 2:24 p.m. It's pretty awesome, very awesome second daughter. And the folks at MAC, as they were with the first, did amazing. Labor and delivery did fantastic. We were in there for 2 full days. My job was pretty easy. I can't say I was trying to be the #1 cheerleader. But baby is healthy, mom's healthy. Just very thankful at this time of year, of course. And with that, I'd like to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone in our community. I'm very thankful for my family. I'm very thankful for the city that we live in. Very thankful for the country that we live in. I hope that each and every one of you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, have an opportunity to be with family and to remember the things that we're all thankful for. So, thank you, Mayor.
Let me just say one other thing, please. I want to thank the people at the Auburn Ward Board for inviting me to eat lunch with them today. The food was delicious. I had a good time, and thank you again.
I have one other thing too. Ward 5 and Ward 6 residents, Stephen and I are having a open public forum at the City Council building at the meeting room on Kitchener Avenue, December the 6th. That's a Thursday at 5:30 p.m. And more than just Ward 5, but then Ward 6 people, obviously everyone is welcome. But it's going to be centered around Ward 5 and Ward 6 issues.
Yep. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, we'll move forward to Auburn University Communications. I know it's Thanksgiving week and university's out. Okay, we'll move on to citizens' communications on agenda items. I remind you that this conversation is for anything that's on our agenda specifically, okay? You have 5 minutes, and please come forward and give your name and address for the record. Anyone? Okay, we'll move forward to the consent agenda. Mr. Buston?
So under City Manager's communication, we start with the first item of business is the consent agenda. Does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and deal with that item separately?
Anyone? Yes.
I would like to remove item 8C, the tax abatement. And it's for the sole reason that we haven't addressed that type of issue before with the council. I think I'd like to be walked through that one.
Okay. Any other item?
Okay. So at this time, do I have an approval for the consent agenda minus item 8C?
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion is second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And item 8C is a tax abatement for Centa Corporation, located in the Auburn Industrial Park.
Jim, maybe,
You would need a motion,
Okay.
and a second, and then we can have discussion.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
All right, any questions?
I'd like y'all to walk us through this one, please.
What we're walking through?
On how it is that,
I missed the number.
It's
Oh,
item,
sorry,
it's
8C.
item 8C, it's the tax
8C.
abatement for Centa.
All right, thanks.
yeah, I'm sorry, it's the tax abatement. How the program works, in very broad terms.
Bill, do you want to address that?
Sure. This is, tax abatements are actually a state incentive. It's a statutory incentive, not a discretionary incentive. The state of Alabama, this is typically in all municipalities throughout the state. We typically do them for 10 years, even though we're a Class 6 city that allows us to do them for 15. And in some instances, under the new tax abatement laws, we can do them for up to 20 years. We typically don't do that. Historically, we've done 10-year tax abatements. And what this is, it's an interesting incentive because it's an incentive that you're providing that, of a tax that you don't currently get and you won't get unless they make the investment. And so what happens is it involves both ad valorem taxes, a portion of ad valorem taxes, as well as some of the transaction taxes. School taxes are not abated, and we traditionally do not abate hospital or children's home ad valorem taxes. So typically, you'll look at, most of our abatements are around 23 mills. This is an existing company, even though Cinta is a new name, it's technically Rexnord Corporation. And what this company's involved in is precision machining of gear couplings for the gas industry, rail industry, and it's a very important, it's not a big project, it's about 8 jobs, around $2.5 million, but it's an important function having to do with Rexnord Corporation.
And this is gonna add a little over $500,000 payroll, is that right?
That's right.
That's been.
And if you'll look at how we do the abatements, we probably put more information in these than just about anybody in the whole state of Alabama. Not only we put what we're abating, we put down what we're getting, we put down all kind of information in this document. Technically, all you do, this agreement was developed by Wood Herring at Bradley. We use Bradley Aran out of Birmingham that does our agreements. There's a very set procedure that we follow. We work very closely with Oline, Price at the tax assessor's office. So we monitor these, and this has been a very effective tool that we've used in our industrial recruiting program. And these are typically recommended by the industrial board, and they've looked at it before we bring it to the city council.
And the abatement has a sunset on it too, is that correct?
Yes, they're for a specific period of time. There's a specific procedure that they follow in order to get that. They have to file, they have to maintain a record, the state comes out, looks at their equipment on their list. We don't do the audit because technically it's a state incentive, even though you approve it as a city council. In years past, we had an interpretation, and I'm going a little long-winded here, but since this is your first one, you need to know this. Technically, the industrial board, under the enabling legislation, was granted the permission to issue these abatements. We took the position a long time ago that we felt that the city council should make these abatements, and consequently, every abatement we've ever done comes before the city council.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
I got a question. I think I was reading something, and I ain't got my glasses with me, so I can't really, I forget my glasses. In that text, in this Centaur, is it Centaur?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I saw, well, it's gonna create 8 jobs,
That's correct.
but it's 6 for the first 6 jobs first, right?
Yes, ma'am. You know, there's not technically a jobs requirement for a tax abatement under the enabling legislation. It's an investment-oriented project. We typically like to have jobs, so we ask them to provide that information to us because we want to know what their payroll impact is, the number of jobs. But this is a very important incentive to industry because it deals with massive capital investment. And we typically recruit more technology-based value-added manufacturing, so it's a very important deal. As far as the jobs are concerned, we don't get involved in how those are handled. Typically, they do those through the state, through employment service, but this will be very skilled. These are machinist type jobs if you look at what's happening here. Rexnord is a milling operation.
And it's 8 jobs, right? It's 8 jobs over
a period of time.
It's not 8 all at once.
Okay.
No.
Right.
Okay, I thought I read something like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Phil, thanks for explaining that to us, man. Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries.
Under ordinances this evening, we have item 9A, is an ordinance which will allow our city code to mirror state code in regards to maximum court fine amounts.
I introduce ordinance and ask unanimous consent.
Second.
A motion and a second. Anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with this vote this evening? Any questions? Lindsay?
Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
Dixon,
Yes.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Toby,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Item 9B establishes one stop sign and one 25-mile-per-hour sign in the preserved Phase 5.
I'll introduce ordinance and ask for unanimous consent.
Second.
Motion and second. Anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with this vote this evening? Questions? All right, Lindsay?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Were there any comments from citizens, one way or another, about this, proposed stop sign or change to speed limit? Was there any citizen input
This is,
or at their request, or?
this is engineering specifications.
We're on 9B, check. Is that right? Yep. City council must approve installation of the traffic control signs. So what I'm asking is, has there been any input from the public, one way or another?
I don't believe so.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Lindsay?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Item 9C1 is EFACO2 Incorporated requesting annexation of 8.05 acres located east of North Donahue Drive and at the southern terminus of Cindy Lane. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this item.
I'll introduce ordinance as unanimous consent.
Second. Motion is second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with this vote this evening? Any questions? All right, Nancy?
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Dixon,
Yes.
Yes.
Item 9C2 is Homer and Gwendolyn Etheridge requesting annexation of 1.7 acres located at 2060 Rockwood Lane. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this item.
I'll introduce the ordinance and ask for unanimous consent.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with this vote this evening? Any questions?
This is within the optimal boundary,
Yes, ma'am.
and this technically has nothing that's contiguous to it currently, which we normally see. But it looks as if the rest may follow.
What was that last part, ma'am?
It appears that maybe the rest may follow, like some of the other.
Yeah, this particular lot, if you look at it, it is not immediately adjacent to a piece of property that's in the city, but if you're across a natural boundary, it could be a creek, a lake, or a pond, that actually enables you or qualifies you to be annexed. It's a little unusual, you won't see this very often.
Any other questions? Okay, Nancy? Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Dixon,
Yes.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Andrews.
Yes.
And Mayor, I would like to take item 11A now, which is a resolution, which is the development agreement for EFACO2 Incorporated.
Okay, Jim, at Ms. Whitten's request, and I would agree with her, we've just received this development agreement tonight. Is there anyone on the staff who could give us a summary of what's in here, since we have not seen this before, just to give us a cursory summary, so
Yeah, Kevin will do that.
thank you.
Yes, Mayor, Council, we have a standard development agreement before you this evening, and I'll go into a little explanation on that. Just quickly, Megan and her staff worked over the weekend on this agreement and got this together, so we appreciate that. And Mr. Haley, representing the development group, is very responsive, and so we were able to get this put together quickly. The first of the two sections deal with water and sewer. This is just standard language for the provision of water and sewer, nothing out of the ordinary there. Section 3 deals with transportation infrastructure. We're asking for an updated traffic study. We're asking for an updated lot layout for some additional properties that will be part of the future development of this subdivision. We're also asking for some improvements for a deceleration lane on North Donahue at North Camden Drive. That was part of the previous development agreement, so that's not a new requirement, but existing requirement. This also asks for, some widening in the turn lane on North Camden Drive itself at North Dunwoody Drive. So that's a turn lane out of the subdivision. So all of that will help facilitate traffic coming into the subdivision with a deceleration lane and traffic going out of the subdivision, Dunwoody Ridge, the whole subdivision. So the item of larger interest, a new item here for this section is section 14, and this is new language that we've been including in development agreements in the Donahue Farmville area, where we're asking developers of larger subdivisions contribute to their fair share of broader infrastructure needs for the region. So this funding will go directly toward planned improvements for North Donahue Drive that no single development is, able to pay for the 3 or 4 or 5 laning of North Donahue Drive. But as all of those developments come on, then they're paying money into this fund, and we will combine with other funds to do those improvements so that the transportation infrastructure is keeping up with the pace of development in that area. So those are the general parameters of the agreement. It's fairly typical for what we would see in this area.
Thank you, Kevin. So Jim, to move forward with questions or comments to,
You would have a motion and a second.
and this is a resolution.
Is a resolution.
Okay. So, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions regarding this?
I'm sorry, thank you. This is phase 5 of this development. Did the previous 4 phases have to undergo a development agreement?
They did not. This was the first.
They did.
Oh, wait, they did.
It
I'm
expired
sorry.
in October.
Yes, yeah, they did. Actually, this development, the developer helped put in the sewer line that not only serves his development, but also serves the preserve.
Right.
And we are looking at some expired, as Megan said, some expired development agreements. There was the original development agreement, which expired. There's a second one. And we're trying to figure out, some of the language in that was to reimburse the developer for some expenses he had in putting in the sewer line. And so we're trying to figure out where that is at this point.
So we don't know if that was ever reimbursed or not?
We don't know at this point if it was or not, and why it was or not. But we are looking into if it is something that fell through the cracks, then that's something we'll have to deal with.
And this requirement to have each developer contribute, that's relatively new?
It is.
Yes.
We've been, there's something that came up when the council several months ago decided to amend the comprehensive plan for this area to make it low-density residential development. It had been a rural area, and so the planning staff put together a comp plan amendment that went through the planning commission, and as part of that, we went through an exercise of looking at how much land there was, what the lot density would be allowable under the zoning, so what would the net result be in terms of housing units, and what does that number of housing units do to infrastructure? What does that do to water, sewer, schools, fire stations, and transportation infrastructure? And so we know, generally speaking, what level of transportation infrastructure would be needed to accommodate what the comprehensive plan envisions. And so from that, we calculated a kind of a fair share contribution based on development. It's not a per lot figure, but it is generally 20 or 25 lot increments for development. So we've done this on I think 4 or 5 subdivisions in this area.
And this additional fee was approved through the chamber, or the chief, through the council previously?
It's been approved
Yes.
through the individual development agreements, yes, sir.
But through, the council did approve those, yes.
Through individual agreements.
Yes.
Yes.
So did phases 1 through 4 have any of this,
No.
this on it?
No, they did not, and Camden Ridge did not. Several of the existing developments did not pay this fee. And again, this is an effort on our part to make infrastructure improvements concurrent with development and to have the developers of those subdivisions pay a fair share of that larger general transportation needs that they are impacting. But obviously, no single subdivision could pay that whole bill.
Rick, how will this connect to, either North Donahue or?
It'll connect internally to the existing Donahue Ridge subdivision. There's a stub out that's called Cindy Lane, and they'll just connect to that point and basically traverse through the existing subdivision to get out to North Donahue.
Okay, it's just not very clear on this map.
No, ma'am, it's not, because the plat actually goes to the planning commission and it hasn't actually been platted yet. So sometimes you don't want to necessarily have the lot layout in front of you to consider as part of the zoning request.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Cindy Lane and I don't, it's a little short road.
Yeah.
Cindy Lane's covering it up.
Yes, ma'am, the text is obscuring the right of way.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Cindy.
Any other questions? Okay, so we do have a motion and a second, so all in favor of approving this development agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Now, Mayor, we're back to ordinances. Item number 9D1 is EFA CO2 Incorporated requesting to rezone 8.05 acres that was previously annexed into the city from rural to development district housing DDH for property located east of North Donahue Drive and at the southern terminus of Cindy Lane. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this item and a public hearing is required.
We'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to speak to this, please come forward and give your name and address for the record. We have a motion to second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with this vote this evening? If not, do we have any questions? Okay, Lindsay?
Parsons?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
Taylor?
Yes.
Witten?
Yes.
Dawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Dixon?
Yes.
Griswold?
Yes, ma'am.
Kirby?
Yes, ma'am.
Anderson?
Yes.
Item 9D2 is Daniel Holland requesting to rezone 12.5 acres from rural to development district housing DDH for property located on the south side of Pear Tree Road, approximately 1,100 feet east of the intersection of Pear Tree Road and Farmville Road. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this item and a public hearing is required.
We'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to come forward and speak to this, please come forward and give your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. The motion?
I want to be ordered as ask unanimous consent.
Second. A motion is second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with this vote this evening? If not, do we have any questions?
I have a question on the map, the plat map. It has one area highlighted in yellow.
Yes, sir.
What does that constitute? What's the yellow?
Well, you've got two exhibits. If you're looking at the map with the kind of the yellow outlined area that's kind of on the northern portion.
Right.
That is what in fact you're seeing on the right-hand side, which is the next page. So you're actually seeing you're kind of seeing a zoom out of that lot, and then you're seeing the actual plat of how that's proposed to be subdivided in the next exhibit.
I got you, okay.
It's on the back of the page.
Okay, just a little bit different shape, that's what.
Yes, sir, it is. It is in fact the same property.
All right.
And some of those lots will go into that stream?
There is a stream buffer that traverses some of the lots shown on the south, which isn't terribly uncommon as long as they're still developable. This had originally been proposed to be lower density, and there was a considerable discussion at the Planning Commission about the need for an additional an additional connection, roadway connection to Pear Tree Road from the preserve. So if you look at the plat map, you'll see the connection to Pear Tree Road, and eventually this subdivision, you can traverse this subdivision to get into the preserve, which is actually an additional needed connection. While that portion of the preserve has not been yet developed, it will be in the future, and that connection is really quite important.
What is that stream? Is that, like a man-made stream, or does that tie into the watershed?
I don't see any particular comment, other than the fact that they're showing the actual required stream buffers, which is in our zoning ordinance, and it's administered by our water resource management folks, so that will typically get dealt with as it's platted, but they do appear to be showing their buffers correctly on this exhibit.
Okay.
Parsons, can you speak to the sanitary sewer service?
I can't. No, it's a water resource management comment, so my sewer, water, I'm limited.
I'm sorry, what was the comment?
The sanitary sewer service, there's a note on here under the water resource management about the pump station.
Yes, I can let. Brett could probably answer that.
And Parker?
I'll let Brad handle it.
Go ahead, Parker.
Are you ready? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, two things. Parker Lewis with Hydro Engineering Solutions. The stream isn't, I think it's an intermittent stream that drains actually back into the preserve. The lots will extend to the stream, but there'll be no development in the stream area. The buffers will apply to each individual homeowner. It's just easier to not carve off an outlaw. So that's why it's part of the loss. So no disturbance in the stream. The sewer, there's a pump station in the preserve that has, Water Resource Management has confirmed that it is sized, as most pump stations are, it's sized for what drains to the pump station, not just for that individual development. So it's able to handle this additional sewer. Realistically, we've got to extend sewer through the preserve before we can serve these individual lots. So I've already started conversations with the preserves engineer to talk about when their schedule for sewer extension is. This is, I think, section 7 or 8 of the preserve. They're on section 4. So we'll have to be good neighbors and probably cost share, hopefully cost share some sewer. But it may very well delay the development of this portion of our development until we're ready to work together as neighbors on that sewer. The remainder of this 72 acres, the 60 acres that's remaining is already been platted for 3-acre rural lots. So that rural lot portion of the subdivision will likely continue while we're dealing with this sewer of these smaller lots. But as Forrest mentioned, this roadway connection was a way to get the preserve back out to Pear Tree and not have to be stuck on that end of their side of the stream with one exit.
Thank you, Parker, I appreciate it. Forrest, I won't ever ask you a sewer question.
I appreciate that greatly.
Any other questions? Okay, so we've got a motion and a second, I believe, right? All right, Lindsay? Yes.
Taylor? Yes. Whitten? Yes. Dawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Griswold?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Item 93 is Daniel Holland requesting to apply the Planned Development District PDD to the 12.5 acre zone DDH for property located on the south side of Pear Tree Road, approximately 1,100 feet east of the intersection of Pear Tree Road and Farmville Road. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval, and there is a public hearing required.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing on this. If you'd like to come forward, address the council, please give your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. Do you have a motion?
I introduce the ordinance and ask for unanimous consent.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with this vote this evening? Are there any questions?
there's a comment in here that a portion of the property will remain wooded. What portion would that be, looking at that map?
Then I'd probably have to defer to the applicant's representative.
Okay. Is that the stream buffer?
Yes, that should be that same street buffer.
So that's gonna constitute all your remaining woods, is those?
Right, and if you look at the, I think that, I don't know, you guys may not have the plat, the current plat is actually just submitted to the plat deadline for planning commission. There's 37 lots, 34 of them are buildable. The other 3 lots are open space lots, so there'll be 2 lots at the front that will likely not really have any clearing, and then all of the area along the stream will not be cleared at the back of those lots.
And around the detention pond?
That's right, detention pond will be cleared enough to build the pond, and then that's really it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Motion is second, so Lindsay?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Under resolutions this evening, we have item 10A1 is Anthony Oliver requesting conditional use approval for a bank to be located on property at 191 North College Street. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this request. A public hearing is required.
We'll open the public hearing. If anyone would like to come forward and address the council, please give us your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
I'm sorry, never mind.
Second. All right, we have a motion second. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10A2 is Chris Birdsong requesting conditional use approval for Performance Residential Development, a single-family detached subdivision for property located at the southeast corner of North Gay Street and East Drake Avenue in the Corridor Redevelopment District. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this request by a vote of 6-1. A public hearing is required.
We'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the council regarding this, please step forward. Give your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Do we have any questions from the council?
I'd just like to make a comment. I would like to commend the applicant for his due diligence in the neighborhood and working with the neighbors, and also for these very detailed drawings and layouts. I think that's something that we don't see in that far, and I commend you for that, so thank you. And I think it'll be a welcomed repurposing of that neighborhood, that corner.
And their patience as we try to work through a few planning sessions, I think, on trying to really define an academic dwelling definition. You know, I know they've been cooperative and tried to really wait as we work through that, and I think we make some great strides in this one. It's my understanding fit the proposed regulations, so we appreciate that.
Anything else from the council?
Yes, please. I agree. I talked with Mr. Birdsong at length today, and I appreciate what all you've done here. Just have one question for the staff. Will unrelated occupants be an issue in this neighborhood if these are truly, student apartments? What they're going to be?
It shouldn't be an issue. We have the 5 unrelated individual allowance in this district, so that will not be a regulatory problem.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10A3 is David Slocum requesting conditional use approval for a car wash on property located at 2415 East University Drive. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this request. A public hearing is required.
We'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the council, please step forward and give your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions from the council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10A4 is Brett Basquin requesting conditional use approval for performance residential development, multifamily development on property located at 868, 876, and 882 Twin Forks Avenue. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended denial of this request. A public hearing is required.
We'll have a public hearing. If you'd like to address the council, please come forward, give your name and address for the record.
Brett Asplin with the Foresight Group, represent the property owner here, 2128 Ward Mill Road, Auburn. The zoning on this property is CBD. By right, twin home or townhouses is improved use by right. We were proposing going to the multi-unit route, which provided actually more controls and more restrictions than going with the fee simple townhome. And so, you know, that's what it is. The Planning Commission was going, their recommendation based upon the future land use plan. Future land use plan in this area showed office. We felt like this property's been on the market for some time. And really, with the topo challenges and the depths and the size, it's really not optimal for office. We felt like this use was a good transitional use between the office park and the adjacent single family and townhome uses there that we're transitioning between there and Chinook. There's overhead power going through there, there's utilities crisscrossing through this property, and so we felt like this was the best use. Like multi-unit gives us a little bit more flexibility in regards to placement of buildings. We can essentially get the same layout, the same density, and everything else going fee simple townhouses and just apply them as individual lots. What you see there in regards to the site plan will look exactly the same. You never know the difference. It's just the way that you would plat it. In regards to that, that would not come before you guys because it's permitted by right and it would be a platting deal and we wouldn't dedicate any right of way. And so it would have been just through the planning commission. So that is what I wanted to bring up. When we first brought this up at planning commission, I don't like to kind of put it up there and say choose between one or the other. I felt like the multi-unit route gave more controls. And why I say that is when I'm going with a townhome setbacks, my setbacks are much less than if I'm going the multi-unit route. When I go the multi-unit route, my front setback's 10 feet, my side setback's 10 feet. When I'm in a multi-unit, it's angle of light. For a traditional, just single-story home, we're talking about 12 feet, so the setbacks are larger. In regards to parking, if I have a townhome project, I'm gonna have to park it one space per bedroom. When I go the multi-unit route, I have to park it 1.1 spaces per bedroom, so more parking is required, bigger setbacks. In regards to ISR, when I go the multi-unit route, my maximum ISR is 0.48. When I go the townhome route, it's 0.85. So, I mean, my intensity in regards to impervious surface area and those things on the side is almost double. You know, on the multi-unit route, I have a certain requirement of openings that have to face the public street. I have required bike parking. I have all these more restrictive requirements when I go the multi-unit route. And so that was, you know, it gives us a little bit more flexibility on placement of buildings, but we can achieve the same thing going fee simple townhomes. We just felt like if between the two, the more restrictive would be something people would probably be more receptive to than what was permitted by right going fee simple townhomes. So I know it's a lot to put on you guys. You know, probably haven't heard much on these types of items, but be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for the developer's representative while he's here? Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Pastor. Still a public hearing. Anyone else? We'll close the public hearing.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions from the
Just to
council?
clarify, we are moving to approve, not moving to approve the recommendation, correct?
Correct. I have a question, because under the recommendation, even though it was recommended for denial by the commission, it does have a statement here that it says, it does provide a logical transition between the existing office park and the single family that is currently to the west. So can you speak to where the disconnect is on the two thoughts there?
Yeah, a lot of that really just had to do with the fact that that was originally platted and intended to be part of the office park, and so you see, basically our future land use lines or designations follow, actually they're analogous to the break-in zoning. So even though you don't have a future land use map in your packet, you do have a zoning map, and so you see where the project is. I think we always anticipated the office park would continue to build out, but obviously the office park is almost built out and that property remains vacant, so then you ask why might that be, and I would argue it has a lot to do with visibility. Even though most of those uses there are medical professional offices and those are destinations, you're not just stopping by because you're driving by. We did have a lot of correspondence. The majority of the communication was from existing office park owners who were opposed to not having office park there. They were opposed to the multifamily, thinking that would degrade their values. We heard property values. We heard from fewer people who lived in Shelton Park that were in favor of the multifamily because they felt that was a more logical transition. What staff was trying to do is just say that it is not consistent with the land use plan that envisioned office park, but as a purist, it makes a fair amount of sense transitionally speaking. So we just wanted to offer kind of both sides to the planning commission to deliberate and ultimately recommend to you, and they ultimately, obviously, recommended denial. But everything that Brett told you as far as the development standards are concerned, as it relates to townhouses versus multiple unit development, is exactly right.
So I have an off question. If down the road, say this were to be approved and they become townhomes, could at some point these townhomes transition to commercial space if that were to be the market drive for those individual townhomes?
My guess is there's probably gonna be some challenges associated with the building code as it relates to residential versus commercial construction. What we're starting to see, we actually have our first proposal that's like this, where we're actually starting to see some people propose live-work units, which are typically configured a little bit differently than a traditional townhome. So I don't know that a retrofit in this particular case would be necessarily viable. And obviously, if they do, with the multi-unit development, you've got kind of you've got control. You'll likely have an association that may, as with a townhouse, you'll have fee simple, which the advantage of a townhouse is that you're probably going to be more likely to get actual, owner occupied than you would multiple unit development, for whatever that's worth. I don't know if that may be neither here nor there.
Any other questions? Okay, so we do have a motion, we have a second to approve the request, correct? Which would approve this development. Is everybody on board with that? Okay, so that's where we are. Any other questions? All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10B1 has been removed from the agenda. Item 10B2 authorizes the fixing of costs for the cutting of grass and weeds on property located at 637 Westview Drive. A public hearing is required.
Public hearing, I'd like to address the council regarding this. Please come forward and give your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions? All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10B3 authorizes the fixing of costs for the cutting of grass and weeds on property located at 641 Westview Drive. A public hearing is required.
We'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the council, please come forward and give your name and address for the record. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second. Motion is second. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Those are all the agenda items we have this evening.
This time we'll have citizens open forum. This is your opportunity to talk about anything that's not on the agenda. I'll remind you, you'll have 3 minutes. If you'll please come forward and give your name and address for the record.
Mr. Buster, my name is Patrick Green. I live at 2274 Riverwood Drive. We're back again, just try to take up the advantage of every opportunity that we have in a public forum to relate the importance of our cause, about the connection that was discussed at the beginning of this meeting. I do want to thank the council, particularly for the last meeting and the support that you showed us. That went a long way, and the neighbors have been very, very proud of that. When we heard of the potential of the alternate solution with the stub out, we were very excited. We welcomed that. It provided emergency entrance and egress, what we would want, but it also had that without the clear traffic. So I'd like to thank Mr. Busson for putting that on the table as an opportunity. We'd also like to thank the planning staff for listening to us. I'm not sure to what degree we've had a true dialogue on this matter. We've spoken out various times, our concern, vehicle and pedestrian safety, things like that. And we, at least in my experience, have not been able to get the city to engage us in that discourse. Anytime we bring up those points, it seems like the context gets shifted to connectivity and traffic flow. So I would hope that we could get better dialogue going. Also, the state of the Riverwood infrastructure has no sidewalks. It can't have sidewalks, the driveways are too short. People have to park on the road. That's another thing that we've brought up various times. We have not gotten a direct rebuttal about points like that. Consider to be very important. Essentially, if there were a connection there, we would be asking this road of Riverwood to become a funnel that's being fed from both ends. That's essentially what it would be. I do believe that the recommendation portion of this is being downplayed. I know the Planning Commission votes on this, but what the city recommends is a very big deal. So I do think that there are other options that are possible. I've heard it said that this would prevent us from being another Richland. We're a closed neighborhood. We have no spare lots. We cannot add any more homes in there. The only way we're going to become a Richland is to open up to more connections. So we become a mega neighborhood. So I believe this would actually provide the opportunity for creating another Richland.
Anyone else?
Good evening, my name is David Erickson. I'm at 2302 Riverwood Drive. I had the opportunity to speak, reiterate Patrick's point. We appreciate the support we received last time when we spoke. Real quickly, just wanted to share my disappointment in what happened on November 8th, Planning Commission meeting. Councilman Dixon referred to that earlier. We had over 30 neighbors present for that meeting. They waited a long time to speak their concerns. We only were allowed one slot before the case was tabled, so that was concerning. Again, to reiterate, our concerns are for our pedestrian and vehicle safety, and then Councilman Dawson very clearly stated concerns of security, so that we echo those same comments that he shared. So there was disappointment. There was also confusion because not about who had the final decision in the matter. That's clearly the Planning Commission, but it was confusion about the city staff's position. This case has been active for about 11 weeks. We've presented 5 times during that time period about our concerns. As of the November 5th packet meeting, it was clearly stated that the city's position was going to be a relatively strong recommendation for required connection. That was on the 5th. And then on November 8th, we were pleased to see the email that was referenced earlier that said, after hearing from the residents of the area, staff will be recommending to the Planning Commission that they not have connectivity at this time. So it wasn't presented as a hypothetical or one of several options that were being considered, but that was clear to us that was a decision. And then as you heard earlier this evening, it is one of several options that are being considered, and they will let us know when a decision is made. So that's where the confusion came in, not in the fact that the Planning Commission had the final say in the matter. It's been our understanding that the city staff really was the only entity involved that was going to require this connection. I think I mentioned in the last time, the developer does not need it to be successful. The neighborhood clearly shared that they don't want it. Members of the city council spoke out pretty strongly, I would say, in agreement with our concerns. And so if the city staff doesn't recommend this connection, we think it's very reasonable to think that the Planning Commission would make that same decision. So I just wanted to share those concerns again. Every opportunity that we've been given since the start of this on August 17th, we've shared those same concerns. Thank you for your time.
David, I just want you to know, we're sorry for what happened November 8th. We're sorry for the confusion. We've all learned a lesson, okay?
Thank
you. Yep. Anyone else? Anyone? Okay, we'll be doing something untraditional this evening. We'll be adjourning to an executive session. Before we do that, I do have something I need to read. I do want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and hope that all of you enjoy your time with your families this week. And as Brett said, I would ask you to be thankful for those things that are blessings to all of us. And I certainly think the city that we live in, and I'm grateful that Auburn is a great place to live, and we're honored to all be up here and serve you. So thank you and have a great Thanksgiving. Tonight we have a matter that the council needs to discuss in an executive session. We have properly noticed and convened the meeting of this council with a quorum present. So do I hear a motion that the council convene in an executive session to discuss pending litigation?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. There being a motion and a second that this council convene in an executive session to discuss threatened litigation, I will now ask each member if he or she votes yea or nay on the motion. It's a roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am.
Dixon?
Yes.
Griswold?
Yes.
Kobe?
Yes.
Parsons?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Witten?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes. Majority of the council has voted in the affirmative. We will now proceed to convene in an executive session in the Development Services Building Conference Room with our attorneys and necessary staff. I want to state that this council will take no action during and will not reconvene after this executive session. Thank you, good night, and happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, I want to meet this young man. Right now, at all, at all. Yeah, it would be.